Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today back to working on the Diresta Bandsaw project, and what we got is a nut. This is a nut that is actually used to attach the main wheel to the bottom shaft on the bandsaw. And I have the original one, but unfortunately we damaged it when we were taking it off. If you missed that whole thing, you can go back and watch the earlier video, but basically this is a left-hand thread, and I was mistakenly trying to loosen it by tightening it, because that's how you normally loosen something. But anyway, I digress. Doesn't really matter. The bottom line is we have to make a new one. So let me kind of show you what we got to work with here, and we're going to get over on the lathe and make out a nut, do some left-hand internal threading. Let's get her done. So this is the original nut off of that bandsaw. It's a 2 1/4 outside diameter. What is that? 1 1/4 inside threads with 10 threads per inch, left hand. It is kind of an oddball thread pitch and size, but that's what's on there. And again, this is used to tighten on the main hub of the bottom wheel of the bandsaw that drives the wheels. Why left-hand threads? Because the direction that the shaft is turning, if you had a normal right-hand thread, it could actually, the centrifugal force of that saw could actually cause this nut to unscrew. So by using left-hand threads, the rotation of the saw would actually always keep this nut tight. It's just a little safety feature in there to make sure that it stays on there. Now here's the problem. Again, when I did this, I tightened it up too tight, and then we had to loosen it up and take it off and had to fight it the whole way, and it galled up some of the threads on the bottom down here. We had to remake the shaft, which we've already done, but this nut is kind of the next step. Now, to make these, I've got some hex stock here. This was actually sent in to me by a viewer. Ken Stokely was kind enough. I had mentioned I was looking for some. I couldn't find any, at least not small amounts of this particular size to make these out of without having to buy a big long stick of it. And Ken was fortunate enough, he actually had some sitting in his shop, and he cut me off a couple of pieces. Sent me a spare just in case I mess up the first one. It's always a possibility. Hopefully we won't do that. So we're going to go put this on the lathe and cut this thing out. We'll start by facing, put this little bit of a chamfer on the front edge, and then I'll probably flip it over. We'll do the back side. Again, face it, get it to the proper thickness. This has got where the round part, it's just recessed in there a little bit. Just keeps those little corners from dragging as you tighten it up. We'll bore it out and then thread it on the lathe, left-hand threads. I did some calculations. What size do I need to bore this out? The information's in Machinery's Handbook. You can look it up. But I was able to calculate out. We need to bore that hole out to 1 inch, 115 thousandths, and then that should be the right minor diameter for that particular thread size that we can go in there and cut the internal threads. Well, let's go to the lathe and get to work on this. Got our piece of material chucked up over here in the lathe, and again, we'll start on the top side of this. I'm just going to face this and chamfer the side. So go ahead and we'll get this going. I just want to clean that up. This side's running pretty true. I can tell the other side has got a little run out in it, but we'll clean it up with the lathe, no problem at all. And I think that has got it cleaned up. It does. So let me get something to put that chamfer on the edge. I think I'm just going to use the edge of this threading tool to kind of come in here and chamfer that with. I think that'll work just fine. So let's we'll just feed in. And I just want to get it down to get all that knot completely off the sides. A little bit more to get there. Just a touch more. And then I'm going to come down here and kind of blend that in. That edge isn't quite enough to get the whole face all the way down. Okay, well, I'm not quite blended in there yet. I need to go just a little bit deeper, it looks like. Real close. Check that out. Yeah, we got it now. I'm just trying to get that edge to kind of meet that shoulder right there, and we succeeded, but I got a little piece down here because that edge just isn't quite long enough to get that, so I'll blend that in. We'll just pull back and that should be blended right there. All right, I like that. It just kind of smooths that corner out. And this side is done. We will flip our part around. I'm going to do all of my boring and everything from the bottom side because I want my hole to be perfectly perpendicular to the face that I'm going to put on this. You know, this front side is not coming in contact with anything. This bottom side actually comes in contact. So we want to have this done in the same operation that we bore it. So let me get this in here. These little short pieces can be challenging. That looks good. I'm looking at the run out on the other side because that's the side we face. I know this side has got some run out in it, but that's just the saw cut. Go ahead and tighten that down real good. And we'll start again by facing. I'm gonna have to make a couple of passes on this one because of the run out. Again, just the saw cut wasn't perfectly square, no big deal. That is very typical. So that's part of the reason why we face stuff on the lathe is to get things cleaned up so they are running true. I think this one's gonna get it cleaned up. Just get a thickness here. The original nut is 1.25 inches, and this is a little over that. We got about, what is that, 65 thousandths. Need to really take off of the thickness, so I'm gonna just zero my digital readout and go in 65 thousandths. Just continue facing in a total of 65 thousandths, and that should get us on the mark. So just take several passes here and we'll get this knocked out. According to my digital readout, we've gone 61 thou, and we're actually perfect right there. So I'm gonna stop. So you see the little shoulder on the bottom, that's 150 thousandths deep and basically just goes in to the diameter. So again, I zeroed out my digital readout here, and I'm just gonna use that to know how deep I'm going. I'm gonna go 150 thousandths. I'm just doing this by hand. Right there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to butt my cutter up to that side, which is how deep I want to go. And we'll make another cut, 150 thousandths. $40, $50 right there. And it looks like I need to go just a little tad bit deeper. I think that's got it. All right. I'll clean all that up on the Scotch-Brite pad afterward, these little sharp corners. But right now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do though, because I do want to chamfer that diameter just a little bit, just to very lightly break that edge. Ever so slightly. That's all I need right there. Makes it where it's not nice and sharp. And now we need to get set up to bore out our hole. All right, we're ready to start drilling this out. I'm gonna start by just putting a little dot right there in the center. Use a center drill. That'll just kind of help that drill bit get started. Got a 1/2 inch drill bit here, and we're going to drill through that. There we go. Now we're going to swap drill bits and go to a 1 inch. All right, we're going to a 1 inch hole here. I'm gonna put a little cutting oil on that, I think. Now, I did slow my speed down, something more appropriate for a 1 inch hole. We're running, what is that, 245 RPMs. One thing I do when I'm drilling a hole like this is that I will kind of peck at it a little bit. That breaks that chip so I don't get those real long stringy chips when I'm drilling. There we go. And we will finish that up with a boring bar. So let's get set up for that. So we drilled this out to 1 inch. I'm going to 1 inch, 115 thousandths. So I got 115 thousandths roughly to take out of there. I haven't got a good measurement on it. We're going to make our first cut with the boring bar, and then we'll go from there. But I know I got at least 100 thousandths come out of there. Tad more. Okay, let me speed this back up. And we'll come in here with the boring bar. I will touch off. And I'm just going to take about a 50 thousandths cut out of there. Come back out, and I'll use a bore micrometer here to see where we're at. So that's 1 inch. 125. All right, so we're roughly 25, 35, 140 thousandths, or 40 thousandths over. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put that in my digital readout here. Put in 1.040. Enter, and that'll kind of give me something to work off of while I'm reading this. Another 50 thousandths roughly. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a blank pass there. Let's see where we're at. So we're about 107. We're going to 115. So we got what, about another 8 thousandths to take out of there. I'm just going to do another blank pass here without moving anything. These boring bars tend to flex a little bit, so as you get down to lighter cuts, it'll continue cutting. Let's see where we are now. So I'm at about 112 and 4/10. So I need about a little over 2 thousandths more. I'm just going to dial that in up here. Should be right there where we need to be. Yeah, we're right on the money. Maybe 16 thou over, but I've actually got about a 10 thousandths range in there we can hit, so we're definitely within tolerance. All right, we are ready to start threading. Let me get set up to do some left-hand threading, and we'll bring you back. I think we're ready to go ahead and start our left-hand threading, and to do this, I've got a left-hand threading bar. And if you notice, normally when you're right-hand threading, you're cutting on the front side here, feeding in. We're going to be cutting on the back side of it, feeding in, and we're basically reversing the spindle direction so that it's turning toward the top of this cutter when cutting in. So I've got my lathe running in reverse, like you see there, and when I engage my cutter, I'll just show you real quick, it's going to feed in. And we're going for 10 threads per inch here. And let me show you a little bit else about my setup. Before I do that though, I think I want to come in here and just touch this off. All right, we're cutting right there. Now let me show you a little bit more about my setup before we start here. So first off, I've got my compound set over, kicked back, because we are cutting left-hand threads. Normally it's turning in this direction. We're basically cutting on a different edge. Now, we're going to be cutting on that back edge back there. The angle is set so that basically we're cutting on that whole back edge. That's a 60-degree cutter, so this is set at 30 degrees, the compound is. I also got a dial indicator set up here, zeroed out. I've looked up, and my depth of cut that I need, that according to spec, is 65 thousandths. Of course, we will do a test fit and get it where everything fits just right. But according to spec, 65 thousandths is my depth of cut. If you've ever wanted to know how to know that, one of these little fishtail tools that are used to set up your cutters for grinding, for threading, use more with high-speed steel, but still a handy little thing to have. There is, on most of these, there's a little scale here, and it's got your different thread pitches on there. I'm cutting 3 threads per inch, and it says 130 thousandths. And notice that's the double depth of American National threads. It's double depth, so it's half of that. So half of 130 thousandths is 65 thousandths. Real easy, quick way to look that up. And we will just, now that we're zeroed, I zeroed my dial indicator, and I can just read on this till I get to 65 thousandths. Why don't I use the dial? I could read 65 thousandths on this dial, but remember, it's the depth going straight in, and we're moving our cutter in at an angle. So if I dial in 65 thousandths, this is on the hypotenuse of a triangle, it's not going to move 65 thousandths in on your depth. So I use a dial indicator here, and I can just keep it real easily, keep an eye on what's going on. So let's get over here. Of course, we'll use the, we're set up for 10 threads per inch. We'll use the half nuts. So we'll engage those to go in. And yeah, I think we're ready to go. Let's do it. All right, here we go. I'm going to start by just making a very light pass. I've only got about 1/1000th of an inch dialed in here. And that's just a scratch fast. We're just going to make sure that I've got my thread pitch set to 10. So we'll find a number to come around over here on the dial. We'll go in until it comes out the back side. Stop. I'm going to back everything out. We'll pull out. I've got a stop on my lathe, which takes me right back to 0. And let me grab a thread pitch gauge here. And I'm just going to come in here real quickly and verify that we are indeed cutting 10 threads per inch, which we are. All right, we are ready to start cutting. So we're back to our 0 number. I am just going to squirt some cutting oil up in here. And we will, I'm going to do probably about 7/8,000ths on this first pass. And we will wait for a number to come around again. Up. Wait for a number to come around, engage. There we go, come out. Back to 0. Dial in a little bit more. And go at it again. And I'm just going to be watching my dial up here on the dial indicator until we get to 65/1000ths. Let you look over my shoulder here a little bit. So we're just going to dial in again about 5/1000ths on our depth of cut. Here's my threading dial down here. There's numbers going around. I've been engaging on number 2. On an even pitch thread like this, I should be able to engage on any number. It's moving pretty fast, so I'm just going to go on number 2 each time. So we'll wait for that number 2 to come back around. I'll engage the half nut, which is going to go on this thread right here, and move that in. It's going to be timed with the chuck so that we go right back down that same pass. All right, we'll do another 5/1000ths. Wait for my number 2 to come around. And engage. Just rinse and repeat. We're at about 40/1000ths on our depth of cut right now. Wait for number 2. So again, on my dial, we'll go to 45. Wait for number 2 to come in down here. Let that feed in. Stop. I'll pull it out here. One of the nice features on these Monarch lathes is there's a solid stop that goes to 0. So it's real easy to dial back in. On a lot of lathes, you have to dial that in manually. It goes a lot faster on one of these lathes. As I get a little bit deeper, I start making a little bit lighter cut per pass. I'm going to go down to about 3/1000ths, put a little bit more oil up in there. And we're ready to go again. Give you guys a different view. There's my clock going around here. We'll wait on number 2 to come around and we'll engage the half nut right here. Disengage it. I'm backing my carriage out, going back to 0, dialing in a few more thou. We'll wait on number 2 to come back around again. And we're getting real close here. All right, this should be the final cutting pass or final depth pass. We'll make a scratch pass after this. Usually, again, like with a boring bar, you're going to have a little flex in that threading bar, so I'm not going to dial in this time. I'm just going to wait for my number to come back around and we'll make a blank pass without feeding in. It's still going to cut a little bit, but it's making a real light cut this time. And we are ready now to do a test fit. Now, for the moment of truth, we're going to do a test fit here and make sure it goes on there. I've got the shaft we made before. Again, left-hand threads. And that is threading up on there nicely. I got a lot of tension out here on this shaft, but that appears to be working good. I'm gonna go ahead and back it on off. I think it's gonna work just fine. So, success. All right, guys, I think we are successful here. I think we got our nut finished out. Here is the new one. Of course, there's the old one that we galled up getting out, and didn't have to go to our backup blank, but that's what we started with, was right there. So let's do a test fit off the machine where I don't have all that weight on it, and make sure everything's gonna be a good fit, and I think we'll be done with this. Here we go. So again, left-hand threads. Normally it's righty-tighty, but in this case, we're gonna turn it left to go up on there. And a little tight in there. I think it's just going up on those threads. First time anything's been up on those threads, but it's going up on there fine. I put a wrench on there, won't have any problem at all, and I think we're good. So yeah, we are good. That's going to be just fine. That thread fit is perfect, right by the book. That's the way we like it. So success. Well, there we go, one step closer on the Jimmy Diresta Bandsaw project. One less little part knocked out, and we are going to be moving forward and getting this thing knocked out here hopefully soon. So again, the nut that will tighten up the main bottom drive wheel on the bandsaw, that's going to be going up on a tapered socket here that this we turned and machined previously on this new shaft. And when you tighten all that up, it just, between the taper and the nut here, it just pulls everything nice and tight, and everything stays together like it should. So anyway, that will be a wrap. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments, always appreciated. Greatly helps with the analytics on the channel. The bell icon up there, you can hit that to get notifications when new videos are posted. And big, huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters out there and other guys who have helped support the site financially. Again, we could not get done everything we get done in here if it was not for all of your help. So with that, guys, again, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.